Hi there, I'm Patrick Gaindo, and today I'm going to be teaching you how I doodle flowers. As always, these are just suggestions. I'm going to show you my ground rules, the things that keep me focused and successful when I doodle this way. You don't have to do it this way, but you might find some little golden nugget in what I say that works for you. So have fun, experiment, explore, and then create. And then when you're finished, send me a picture of what you came up with. I would love to see it. To start, I'm going to show you the different types of flowers that we can draw and teach you a little bit about variety and repetition. So there are about 4 different types of main flowers that I draw in my doodles. And the first one, and the one that I usually start with, is a rose. And we can do roses simply by doing swirls. You can leave it as a swirl, or you can take your swirl and you can add extra petals onto it. You can add extra kind of front to it or some leaves. You can detail the leaves as much or as little as you want. You can put no details at all. It's entirely up to you. If you want it to be less like you're looking down at it, you can do a bit of like a squishier kind of swirl. So then bring it around. See how I did that? So I did the swirl around and then pull it back behind. And then you can do that a few times. Swoosh up and around, give it a little base, a few petals at the back, leaf if you want it. Remember, detail as much or as little as you want. So you can do roses. Like I said, I don't always, but I usually start with these because that swirl just kind of gets my hand warmed up and gives me a starting point. I often do a few big roses and then fill in the rest of the space. So we can start with roses, and then you can also do your basic daisy, which is just a circle in the center, and then you just fill in the petals. You can have as many petals or as few petals as you want. Another one that I really love, and I use this a lot in my paintings, is baby's breath. And all that is just some little circles or raindrop type shapes. And I usually put one at the top in the center. So basically what I'm doing is I'm creating a bigger teardrop that you don't see and then filling that in with a collection of them. Sometimes I do a lot, sometimes I do just a few, but I usually do a minimum of 3. So that's called baby's breath. Those are the little white flowers that you'll see in bouquets that are just sort of really, you don't really notice they're there until you take some time to look at it, but they just add a little bit of extra, a little extra finesse to it. So it just makes it kind of come together and look really nice. So that's 3 types of flowers. The last one that I use is my absolute favorite flower of all time. And they're found out on the East Coast, and those are lupins. And so to doodle a lupin, all I do is what you just saw, which is a line. And you can make it curly, or you can make it straight or curved. And then I just start to do a loop back and forth and bring it in nice and small at the top. So the thing about lupins is that they come in many colors, but they also are much broader at the base. And they come up to a nice fine point. So these are our 4 main types of flowers. The other thing that I will do, I will add to my doodles, are different collections of circles. Because when we pull back and we just take in the whole thing, we're not looking for individual flowers. What we're looking for is the feeling or the impression that it's a flower. So simply by having lines and shapes that suggest flowers and colors that make sense together, so they don't have to make sense for a flower, but they have to make sense together, so that's called a color scheme, we give the impression of the flower. So little circles to fill in we might consider them to be baby's breath, or they might just be pieces of other flowers. They might just be sparkles. However you want to imagine it, it doesn't really matter, because we're just giving the impression of a flower. So the next thing that you need to know about is the idea of variety. And variety means that things are different. So we have repetition with our flowers, and we have repetition because there are 1, 2, 3, 4 types of flowers. We're gonna repeat the same 4 flowers over and over. You could fill an entire wall in your house with the same 4 types of flowers, and that could be really boring to look at. But if you use variety properly, then the repetition is, so you sort of trick the viewer into believing that they're really looking at this amazing field or bouquet of flowers. So the variety comes in kind of 2 main ways, and that is the amount of the groupings. And what I mean by that is when you draw roses, how many are you drawing together? Are you drawing 3? Are you drawing 5? Are you drawing 7 in a group that are all the same size? Size is the other variety that we need to think about. So the size of our flowers needs to vary. It needs to change. So every rose should not be the exact same size. There should be big ones and small ones and little ones, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense in real life, because like I said before, we are giving the impression. We're suggesting that these are flowers. All right, so now that we understand some of the kind of ground rules, the last thing I want to mention is the 3, 5, and 7. So groupings of flowers always look better in odd numbers. And those odd numbers might be 3, 5, or 7. You could go up to 9 and 13 and so on, but for our main chunks, for our main groupings, we're gonna stick to 3, 5, or 7 mostly, because after 7 it becomes too much and then we get really messy, which is fine, but then we kind of start to lose count and then we're really focused in on a flow of giving an impression. So let's get started on a doodle. I'm using a black Sharpie, and that's something you could use if you have one, but if you don't, you can use a pencil. My favorite kind of pencil to use is a standard old mechanical pencil. You can use a pen, you can use markers, you can use pencil crayons, you can use wax crayons. It doesn't really matter. What you could also do is take some color and color down first, not wax crayon because you won't be able to draw over it, but color first or paint first, and just little kind of blobs of different colors, and then draw your flowers over top. And it doesn't even matter if your rose is part yellow and part green and part blue. We're giving the impression. So I'm gonna get started here with a rose. And it's gonna be sort of, for now at least, the star of the show. And now that I have this as my starting point, I'm gonna think about, how do I wanna set this up? Do I wanna cover the whole page? Do I wanna create a flow? Maybe I want some room for some words. So I think I'm going to write the word breathe, because it's really important to remember to breathe. And it's really important to remember to breathe when we're feeling stressed out, when we're feeling overwhelmed, and sometimes that can happen when we're making art. But we know the ground rules. We know that we're giving the impression through repetition and variety with these 4 different types of flowers. And we know that we need to vary the size of the group, the size of the flowers, and also the amount in the groupings. And sticking to odd numbers will help us. So I'm gonna put breathe, and I'm gonna kind of try to swoop it around. So to help me swoop it, I'm going to put in a lupin around the word breathe. All right, and then, you know, one kind of looks funny to me, so I'm gonna add another little friend for it there. And maybe just some of the grasses behind. And now some more swirly roses. So here's 3, but notice how they go straight across? It's not looking good to me yet. So I'm gonna add just a few more. They're relatively the same size, and I'm gonna add a few circles, maybe a little baby's breath. And so now things are starting to come together. So we have this group, it's not all in one chunk, it kind of is triangular. And triangles are really key, you can see another one up here, to having a well-composed piece of art. And when I say well-composed, I mean it looks good on your page. So let's get to work. I'm gonna speed up the video now, and you can watch as I doodle.